Greetings, this is Ty Brown, and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast, where we highlight executive leadership in college athletics. This episode will be hosted by Lamar Pottinger, Director of Leadership Development at NCAA.
Greetings, welcome to the One Question Podcast. My name is Lamar Pottinger, and I serve as the Director of Leadership Development at the NCAA. I'm here today with Alex Ricker-Gilbert, Senior Vice President and Athletics Director at Jacksonville University. Alex, how you doing?
I'm good, my friend. How are you?
We're doing good, my friend. Now, Alex, this is a long time coming.
Yep.
We've known each other for how long now?
Over a decade.
Over a decade.
I think so.
Yeah.
You've come a long way.
I was going to say, I've come a long way since my first full-time gig at Jacksonville University. Tell the people out there how we met.
Yeah, I guess it was 2015, Lamar, right? And we were looking for an academic advisor. I was the associate AD at the time at Jacksonville. We were looking for an academic advisor, and one of my former mentors, bosses, Tommy Bell, was at, I think, Southern Illinois at the time, or maybe it was Western.
Western.
Yeah, Western. And you had gotten your graduate degree at Western.
Yes.
And Tommy said, I got a guy that you can't miss on. And he was right.
Yeah.
And the rest is history. And now you're running the show over at the NCAA.
Some people will say that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And now you're Senior Vice President and Athletics Director. I believe you became the AD in 2016.
Yeah, May of 2016. It's been 8.5 years, 10 years total at Jacksonville. And I'm grateful for the people and the opportunity and all that comes with it.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about your role at Jacksonville, because you have a unique role as the athletics director, but also with the senior vice president title.
Yeah, I think it's been a eye-opening experience. Obviously, I got the job at a young age. I was 27 when they notified me, 28 when I got the job. And, you know, a lot of trust from my president and Tim Koss, who's been an unbelievable mentor. And initially, I was not on the president's cabinet, and worked my way to a position where I'm on the cabinet as the senior vice president, have a lot of responsibility outside of just athletics for university strategic decision-making with our other 6 VPs. And it's been a really exciting opportunity because I get a look into all that goes on at the university and the community outside of the athletic department. And I think it's equipped me for a lot of things for my future.
Awesome. And President Tim Koss is, in my opinion, I'm biased, obviously one of the probably most dynamic presidents in the nation.
Yeah, he's first and foremost a great guy. You can have a normal conversation with him about what's going on in the world of professional sports, what's going on out in the world in politics or whatever. And obviously he's an expert in this space with a whole different level of worldly experience than maybe the traditional university president, in that he's an alum of JU, came back to his university as really a passion project of his, because he was in corporate America for 35 years. He was executive vice president at PepsiCo most recently before he came back. And so he's got that corporate experience. And in this moment, with all that we've gone through in the last 10 years as an industry, as a higher education, as a whole, that experience in how to be sort of nimble in that space has proven to be transformational for our campus, and a lot of credit goes to him.
Yeah, that's great to hear. So I have a background now from an education standpoint in human resources and organizational development. And since I've received my degree, I've been really interested in how the HR theory relates to the athletics practice, whether that's professional sports, college athletics. And I truly believe that athletics departments can do a better job of leaning into some of those HR theory practices and or recognizing that they're already doing it. One thing that I would love to dive into more today is succession planning. And just from a definition standpoint for everybody, the process of identifying the critical positions within your organization and developing action plans for individuals to assume those positions. So pretty much having a vision of potential positions that will open.
Yep.
And then really looking at your roster or personnel to see who internally could fill this right now, or who could I develop to fill this in the future. And just knowing you personally and professionally, you've done that a lot of times. On the coaching side and on the staff side as well. Can you talk about your philosophy when it comes to hiring coaches and or your senior staff?
Yeah, I mean, you hear it all the time. It's a little bit cliche, but it's also the truth, and that's that people make the place, right? In Jacksonville, being a close-knit, small private university, we have to lean into that. And the most important thing we do as an athletic director is hiring. And I would say specifically hiring head coaches. If you do a good job with your head coach hires and they understand that they're there to develop young people, the rest of your job is so much easier. If you don't do a good job hiring, the rest of your job is so much harder. And I know that sounds simple, but it's so critical that you put in the time in developing the philosophy. And ours has evolved over time. And we talk a lot about what the 2025 now student athlete needs. And I'll share a little bit about our head coach search and what we look for. And I think it depends on the place. But our philosophy specifically, I'm not necessarily looking for somebody who's been a head coach. That's a plus. I'm not necessarily looking for somebody who has 25 years of experience. Obviously, that can help. Our first two things that we look at have nothing to do with where they've been necessarily, what jobs they've held, what offenses they run, who they've recruited. That's all important, but those are factors after the first two things. And the first thing we look at, and in the interview process, we don't even ask questions about the sport, is will this person care more about our student athlete as people than athletes? Will they connect with the student athletes on a personal level? Will they build lifelong relationships with the student athletes far beyond the basketball court or the soccer field? And that's critical to us because we are a close-knit community. The people make the place, as I said, and it doesn't matter if you can draw up the greatest play out of a timeout, if you have the best scheme. If the kids don't know that you care about them, it's not going to matter, right? They're going to play harder for you if you pour into them as people. They will run through a wall if you pour into them as people. So we talk about values, the character of our candidates before we talk about the sport. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, and we say, embrace the place, right? People fit maybe, but we say embrace the place. Talk to us about what you know about JU, why JU is great to you, why it can be great. Talk about all the things that's good about JU, and don't focus on the things that might not be great or the resources we might not have. If we find somebody who's really done the research, who we feel like really cares about the place, has a passion about the place, and the first thing, cares about the kids first and foremost, that person is most likely to move on to the next round of interviews where we're going to talk more about the sport, more about their recruiting philosophy, more about what they do on the court or the field. So we really try to look for the soft skills first because of that dynamic in college athletics and because of what we value. We value developing young people and not just basketball players or not just football players or not just baseball players. So it's worked as that philosophy has evolved, and we've had some success in leaning into those couple of characteristics.
Yeah. Embrace the place. I love that, just because obviously I was there for a small stint, as you would say, and it was what I walked into as well.
Yep.
Right. When you think about the city of Jacksonville, when you think about the location of JU, but just also the family environment that it brings from a standpoint, and that when you have all these different people coming to one place, and definitely the student athletes, just because the type of student athletes you'll have at Jacksonville are academically sound, and athletically sound as well, and they prioritize both, right?
Yes, have to.
So you have had some success with hiring these head coaches, and they have moved on, right? And you've had a number of different head coaches move on to, I wouldn't say bigger and better, but other opportunities and continue to be successful. Can you talk about a time where you had a coach move on and you allowed their assistant or associate head coach to be the next head coach? What was that process like, and was it preparing them for that? Were you thinking about that, during the head coach's tenure of his success? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, and succession planning is critical. You touched on it, and we also have to understand the reality of the industry, and that's it's transient. And so if you think you're going to hold on to everybody, you're very naive. And it's good when coaches have success and are able to move on to opportunities that they believe are better for them. It means that you've done your job well. It means that you've hired coaches that are having success. And so to your question, what we've tried to do is within our coaching staff, so obviously you have the head coach who the sport administrator meets with regularly. But the sport administrators and we meet all the time. We also identify within the coaching staff who on staff might be able to step in if the coach were to move on. And once that person or people are identified, we will try to have more direct, and I will try to have more direct communication with them and set up formalized meetings. And so, for example, Jordan Mincy, our head men's basketball coach, he is a superstar. I hope he stays forever. But the reality is that's not how things work. And so we have an associate head coach, Mike Fly, who's been a head coach before. He was a head coach of Florida Gulf Coast, who I meet with regularly. I meet with him once a month for an hour, and we just talk about what's going on in his world, how he wants to develop, how he sees things going on within the program on campus. I share with him ideas on how he can better create presence for himself on campus so he can develop and work back to that head coaching spot, whether here or elsewhere. And that allows me to create a different relationship with him than if I was just interacting with him in passing. Right. And so we do that with a number of our programs who we have identified folks as potential replacements for the head coach if they were to move on. It's not every program, because sometimes we don't feel like somebody's yet ready, but they could be in the future. And so we try to do different things, whether if it's not a one-on-one with me, we have professional development for our assistant coaches run by one of our senior administrators. We have internal professional development for our graduate assistants and entry-level employees so they can get a different perspective on the industry, on what's going on at JU. Because, if you're an assistant coach, sometimes you're tunnel vision. You're doing what you're doing and you're not necessarily thinking outside of those job responsibilities. So we try to engage our younger staff in different opportunities so they get more of a worldly view outside of their day-to-day job.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I think what you said is, one of the things you said I think is really important to point out is you as the athletic director making time for that assistant coach.
Yes.
Right? And developing that relationship intentionally and making sure that there's some type of touch point that is authentic, right? And really just building that relationship so that you can get to know that individual a little bit more. Because whether it's Division I, Division II, or Division III, I can't say that that's the norm for an athletic director to have that type of touch point with the individual assistant coach, within several departments, as you made an example.
Yeah, and being present and giving people your time, that's important. Our assistant coaches, our assistant ADs, our associate ADs, they're the future of this industry. And so we'd be doing the industry a disservice if we're not pouring into them and their future, right? Because they'll make this industry that is so transient, that is so volatile, better. And so it's our job, it's my job, it's leadership's job to make sure you're setting your folks up for future success.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Jacksonville is, to your earlier point, a small private FCS institution, Division I, and you do have coaches move on. You also have staff members move on, whether they're junior staff or senior staff. Talk about how you try to be creative with retaining staff, both on the coach's side and on the administrative side. You don't have to get into your contract details and the numbers, but what are some of your approaches when trying to retain staff, in addition to obviously retaining the next up?
Yeah.
But thinking about maybe some of your senior staff, trying to continue to retain them to be there. Yeah.
People want to feel like they're valued. And so we try to provide value through, I mentioned, different opportunities for them to grow internally and externally. Professional development. We're at NCAA convention, NACDA, things like that. We try to offer to our staff to show that we're invested in their development.
Yeah.
From a more sort of black and white retention strategy perspective, if I feel as though somebody is going to be successful, show signs of promise early at our level, at the low mid-major level, I get aggressive. I'll extend a coach in their first year. I will try to get creative inside a contract in their second year, early on, because it's oftentimes before somebody else is going to come get them.
Yeah.
And there's risk there, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think the reward far outweighs that risk. If they're a good person, if they treat the kids right, if the students are doing what they're supposed to be doing in the community, and they're having success in their given sport, the risk, I don't think, is that significant. And more often than not, that approach will show them how much you care about them, how much you want them here. After Jordan Mincy's first year, I gave him a 10-year extension. He did a great job. He turned the program around. People probably question that, but I knew he was the guy for the job for a long time. John Galloway, our lacrosse coach, same thing.
He was there when I was there.
Yeah, same thing. I extended him in his second year. And so I think it depends on where you are. That might not be a tactic at different places or certain levels, but I try to get aggressive when I see that somebody has a talent and has embraced the place and cares about the right things.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Going back to embrace the place, when you think about the place of JU, what would you say is your competitive advantage to bring people in, coaches or staff?
Yeah, I think from a we've talked a lot about coaches, so I'll share on the administrative side. There's upward mobility for us. If you do a good job, you're going to get rewarded. You're going to have more opportunity. You're going to be able to dip your toes in things and wear hats that you might not be able to wear other places. I'm going to give because I was a young administrator,
in Division I when you got it.
At the time. I don't think so anymore. Is it? I feel like the old guy. And so showing that, as a 25, 26, 27-year-old, you can be a sport administrator. You have freedom to fail. You can make mistakes. We'll be there to help you through those issues. You'll be able to not just do compliance. You might be able to, dip your toes in academics or leadership development or business operations. I think that's an advantage for a mid-major, because we need people that can wear a lot of different hats. And then that sets them up for a whole host of jobs, not just a job in compliance, but maybe over internal operations, since they have different experiences inside different areas. So I think that's a separator for us. And I think it shows in sort of what some of our people have been able to go on and do.
Yeah. And
including you.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'll affirm that strategy, because when I came to Jacksonville, I was hired as an academic advisor, and I had an interest in, at that time, life skills and turned into student athlete development. And you said, hey, we don't have any money, but if you want to do these things, set a plan, work with your supervisor, and let's do it. That's important for the student athletes. And I always appreciated about you and being creative in that. And that was one of the things that helped me get to Old Dominion University and then be a director of student athlete development and over academic advising. So
yeah,
I'm proof in the pudding, as they say.
Absolutely.
That philosophy. So it's great to hear you talk about it.
Absolutely. We're proud of you.
Proud to be connected with you, Alex.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time today.
Awesome.
I hope you enjoy the rest of the NCAA convention.
You too.
And let's continue this conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always great to share, and I know there's a lot going on in this industry, but at its core, it's about the people in it, and I'm proud to be part of it. So thank you.
Awesome. This is Lamar Pottinger with One Question Podcast. See you next time.
This episode of the One Question Leadership Podcast is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.